Yeah, after my first year, I guess starting the second year, I knew I was rated in the first round type thing. You knew that kind of. And then after World Juniors, I guess that's when we won the gold medal. I knew I was going somewhere in the top 5. And then the season ended, and we lost out early first round of the playoffs. But I knew 1, 2, or 3. But Toronto never tipped their hand who they were going to take. Craig Simpson said, "Oh, I don't want to go," and then he changed his mind, said, "Okay, I'll go now." So he ended up not. And who was it? Craig Simpson, myself, Craig Wolanin, Jim Sandlak were kind of the names in the top 3, 4, 5 there. So I didn't know till draft day that I was actually going number 1. Toronto didn't tip their hand. Craig Simpson, maybe that was the spot to go. He gets to play with Mario, then Gretzky. So who said maybe number 2 was better?
That was Maple Leaf legend Wendel Clark, and you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. All right, Up My Hockey listeners, you are in for a treat today. We have none other than Maple Leaf legend Wendel Clark on the show. This was really special for me because he was legendary to me. He probably didn't know it at the time when we played together. I highly doubt I would have said anything, but he was one of the guys that I looked up to immensely as a young man. You know, I was 10 years younger than Wendel, so I was born in 76. He was born in 66. So that generation gap in hockey is a lot. I mean, imagine yourself as a 10-year-old athlete, and Wendel had been in the NHL for 2 years at that point. Even take it back, I was 8, 9 watching Wendel get drafted, and then starting with his Maple Leaf career, scoring the 30 goals that he did his rookie year and getting over 200 minutes and penalties and making the Rock'em Sock'em Don Cherry videos. And, it didn't take long to fall in love with Wendel's game and what he was all about. He could score, he could hit, he could fight. And he did all 3 really, really well. And he was just one of the guys that I looked up to. And there I was, essentially 10 years later, playing on his line, being in the same dressing room as him. It was one of those surreal moments that I think all hockey players go through when they do, if they do, get lucky enough to put on an NHL jersey. And it's that wow factor. And you have to figure out how to believe that you're supposed to be on the same ice as these people. Once having posters on your wall and now on the same line can be surreal. And so Wendel for me was in my top 3, and it was awesome to chat with him on this interview. And what you see is what you get with him. I mean, what he was as a player is what he is as a human being. Just straightforward, to the point, honest, integrity. You name it, right? Wendel has it, and those roots, those Saskatchewan roots, come through loud and clear. They did on the ice, and they do in the interview, and boy, I just had a lot of fun with this discussion and this conversation, and found out some really interesting stuff. One of which is that I didn't know this, and I don't know if you know this, and we talk about it in the conversation here to follow. But Wendel Clark was drafted as a defenseman. He played defense his entire life. He played defense his entire time with the Blades. The only time he apparently played forward was when he made the World Junior team, and he was kind of a fringe defenseman, like a 7-8 guy, so they moved him up for 3 games on forward. So the Maple Leafs drafted him as a defenseman and then turned him into a forward without him even knowing he was going to be turned into a forward. We get right into that. That's crazy time that you would take the best 18-year-old in the world and just implant a new position on him when he shows up for training camp. My mind is still blown over that, especially with how some parents and players at the youth level react to a position change. At the 8 through whatever you name it level, where they're shocked, upset, disappointed. Here it happened to the best 18-year-old player on the planet, where he was switched without anyone even talking to him. But anyways, we get into a lot of cool stuff. This guy, as you know, or if you don't know, if you're a younger listener, you need to YouTube Wendel Clark in a hurry, because he played some old-fashioned style hockey, and he talks about it in the interview too, where he's like, the way I hit, he's like, somebody was stopping, because the angles that he hit people at were pretty crazy. There was no angling off; it was straightforward, and somebody was going backwards, and yeah, unbelievable shot. We talk about his shot. We talk about some of the fundamentals of how he learned that shot from his dad. And how he brought it up into the NHL, and what type of stick he used, and the size, and all that good stuff. So there's a lot in here. Anytime you can listen to a legend, obviously you want the opportunity to do that. Lots of great nuggets here in this conversation, and I know for probably a lot of you older listeners like me that this guy was somebody that you if anything less, you had to have respect for him. He may not have been your favorite player, but there's no way you couldn't respect him in the way he played, because he was honest and he was tough, and he could play the game hard. So let's get right into it. My interview with Leaf legend and former captain Wendel Clark. All right, here we are, back with my old line mate. And when I sent the email, Wendel, I was like, gosh, I don't even know if you'd remember playing with me, but I'll throw that in there. We were on the same line for a couple of days, but welcome to the podcast, Mr. Wendel Clark.
Hey, how are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. So in your, and be super honest, because like I was only there for like a cup of coffee, really, that 1 year when I got traded for Muller, which would maybe be memorable at the time. But like I showed up there, was there for I think 10 games, and then only played 3 after that. But out of those 10 games, I think 3 of which we played together. Do you remember that time at all?
No, I remember playing with you, but I don't remember right details. Like that right. Was like you say, a phase of where me remembering hockey stuff, especially, is you don't remember it, and then you'll see a tape of a game, and then it all comes back. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter. When we used to do the highlights for Joe Bowen, for the 80s playoff game or something. And I said, I have no idea what happened in that game. And as soon as they give you the tape, or this is back 15 years ago, and you'd start watching the tape, that whole game would come back. But if I was to just remember it, I said, yeah. I can't. I can remember names, yes, yeah. Who was there, but I can't remember instances till I see the game.
I'm totally like that too. Like my dad just dropped off this box, like this old dusty box of VHS tapes that he had for who knows how long, right? Well, back in 96, essentially. And I hadn't seen any of them. And that was back in the time, like 96, right? Like the internet wasn't around. Like you couldn't YouTube anything, like I never seen myself play really a pro hockey game. Like there was VHS that we would watch, like with the coaches sometimes here and there. But anyways, he brings this box over, and sure enough, like there's 2 or 3 games on there, playing with the Leafs, a couple with me with the Panthers, and I didn't remember any of it, like none of it, but it was super cool to watch and to see. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't remember details. I mean, that moment for me was obviously a big moment in my life. I mean, being traded for Kirk Muller and coming over there and being a Toronto Maple Leaf and, being around that environment. So I remember a few of those details pretty well. But one of the funny things is, so they gave me number 7 when I came there, which was an honor because, Lanny and some legends have worn that number before. But I was number 17 in which we probably never talked about. I was 17 for 4 years in Spokane, and then 17 with the Florida Panthers. And then when I came, obviously I wasn't taking your number, so they gave me 7.
No, well, maybe he should have offered more than a Timex watch or something. I may have taken it.
Oh shoot. Yeah, that was a weird time though, because you guys had just come off, I mean, like you're kind of a couple of the glory years there when you were there, and the team wasn't doing quite as well, and they were in the middle of a rebuild, and trying to figure out sort of the direction of the team. So
Yeah,
I just
that
remember it
was.
was, like the guys were great, but it definitely felt well, you've been there, right? Like when
Yeah,
you're
no, it was.
rolling.
Well, I had just come back a year earlier, basically a year and a bit from the Islanders. Got traded back from the Islanders, um, and we didn't win right away. And so the whole transition, right then, the transition was going on because Dougie was the big centerman, and then all of a sudden, Mats gets traded for me back in '94, and so that basically, right, starting in that '96, '97, '98, they were switching and building the team around Mats then.
Yeah.
And that was the changeover right then. So we had lots of teammates going in and out and around at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's when I think Dougie was traded that year, a little bit before, or maybe right before the deadline that
Yeah.
year. And then so Muller left. I think Ellett was gone then. Like there was a few of those, the elder statesmen that were part of the run there, that they were moving around, and like you
Yeah.
said, bringing some new guys in and seeing what fit. But I want to get back and dig back into your career, and I mean your outstanding career, and sort of the genesis of it. Lots been said of the good old boys from Saskatchewan, and so many have come out of Saskatchewan. Do you want to briefly just touch on what hockey was like for you growing up in the Saskatchewan area there?
Yeah, no, I come Kelvington, Saskatchewan, small town, 900 people. Melrose, Koshers, Clarks, that whole kind of era right there, and a ton of other guys that went on to play junior or college or either be tier 2 or tier 1 junior. There's a lot of players come through Kelvington at that for a little town at that time, and even the area, the Oda lines coming out of Quill Lake, the Elenuk, Plonich, Federko's coming out of Foam Lake. Like that whole area had just a plethora of players coming out for a bunch of small towns. But grew up, no artificial ice, natural ice, waiting for it's cold enough to play. And then you'd not get off the ice from December 15th till March 1st. You're on the ice every day, just a small town. But then we had no artificial ice. We didn't skate more than that. People thought, and you didn't. And so you really did it in a short window versus today when you got the artificial ice. Every town has it. And so did a ton of playing. Used to go to training camps at 12 years of age, started going to junior camps. My dad, being a former player a little bit, that was his way of getting us ice time. We'd go to the Humboldt Broncos camp, the Prince Albert Raiders camp, the Yorkton Terriers, Regina Pats, Saskatoon Blades. I'd do all the camps. I think you pay $100 and you got to skate in October. And he always knew, you're getting cut. You're not going to make anything, but it's getting ice time. Meanwhile, you're skating with 16 to 20-year-olds and you're 12, 13 years old. And then so just that was part of getting ice time back then, coming from a small town.
Right. So when you're saying artificial, do you actually mean artificial, or do you mean like actual covered rink with like?
Yeah,
pipes?
we had covered rink, but everything was natural ice inside. So it wasn't until it got cold enough that it make ice indoors.
Wow.
So
okay.
you weren't really skating till December.
Wow.
You might.
I'm glad I asked that. I didn't know what you meant by that. So even the covered indoor hockey rink needed it to be cold enough outside.
You had the doors open, the cold air coming through, and then you just kept layering it. So as the spring came along, you probably had maybe 10, 12 inches of ice built up in there. So as it wasn't as cold, you kept wearing the ice down. But that's letting people know how cold Saskatchewan is, that you could have natural ice in a building. And so I remember one year we changed lines as kids in Invermay, Saskatchewan. We had to change lines from the dressing room. It was too cold to stand on the bench. It was minus 40 in the rink.
Oh my God.
And back then, remember, we had no face masks, so you wore mitts and toques and not the equipment you had. Today, you couldn't have stayed in there because hockey gloves and helmets with masks today, it'd have been too cold to play.
Right. That is nuts. I played end of my career there. I played over in Germany in the DEL, and there were some outdoor rinks there, and it was super. I mean, you'd have like the state of the art facilities, right? That would hold 20,000 people. And then you'd go somewhere and it would be an outdoor facility that would hold like 5. Like that league was really wild that way. But I remember there was a couple of times there in those games where the water bottles were frozen on the bench, right? Like you couldn't even drink water.
I remember that. I think we had training camp with Tampa over in Germany, and you had the half rinks, like the half half would be indoors, half would be
Yeah.
outdoors, and the whole gamut.
Yeah, it was fun. So when you what actually you mentioned Fedorko there. We just had an outdoor classic, we called it, for my U13 team, which we play. So I rented the outdoor rink and I had everyone wear whatever NHL jersey that they had. And one of the dads had a Fedorko jersey from St. Louis and told me the story. I guess he like grew up next door to him when he was playing in the WHL and was really the reason why he ended up falling in love with the St. Louis Blues. So I didn't, what a hockey player Bernie was. I mean,
Bernie was up, and he had been the first hockey school. I went to Yorkton Hockey School, and that's where I met Bernie Fedorko. Was the big NHLer. Him and Barry Melrose was kind of the same, coming out of Kelvin in the same era. And he had played senior hockey against my dad. So when he was a 14-year-old playing senior, he played against my dad in Kelvin because Full Mike was in that same senior hockey loop. So got to meet Bernie and Ken, his brother, and Dennis Plonich was there as well with the hockey school. Another guy from the area, and so there was a lot of. That was my first hockey schools, and met Bernie, and probably got to follow him opposite kind of how he played, but just his skill level that Bernie played with. For a guy, I always said this, for a guy that couldn't skate well, he was 100 points every year, and a lot of players. That maybe are a lot of fans that didn't know Bernie because of playing in St. Louis and the games weren't as covered back then. And I'd compare him. I said, well, he's got the same stats as Daryl Sittler does. Just to give you an idea how good Bernie Fedorko was. He had the same stats as Daryl Sittler. And then they go, oh my gosh, he was a pretty good hockey player. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason.
Yeah.
But you didn't know that because he played in St. Louis, and the road games when I started out, St. Louis probably wasn't covered unless it was a Leaf game. A lot of times you could, a lot of bad things could happen in a hockey game back then. And it wasn't covered other than in the paper. There'd be a little, so that's why nobody got in trouble. It was never really covered that closely down there.
That's right. Everyone's got a million cameras on you now. You can't do anything, right?
You can't get away with anything now.
Yeah. What's your theory on what's to be said about Saskatchewan just in general? I mean, most people that are involved in the game know that Saskatchewan produces more players to the NHL for the population than anywhere else in the world. What's your theory on that?
My theory is it's the only thing to do in the winter. I just know that from my son, who now plays the American League with Hershey. But growing up in the city and coaching in Toronto area kids hockey, kids have so many things to do now in today's world with technology and everything. So they're always moving from one thing to another. But in Saskatchewan, back in our day, and even today, you are committed. Like if you're playing on the Kelvington. I have friends that are living in Kelvington now, and they're playing hockey out of Prince Albert and Yorkton, which is 100 miles in either direction. That's who their kids play for. So they're traveling 100 miles every day for practice or games, and so there's a commitment level there that I think players and parents, because it's the parents that have to make the initial commitment, and I think there's a real commitment to whatever they pick. It might be volleyball, whatever the sport, but if you picked hockey, that's what you are doing. You don't have time to do other sports and other things just because of the travel time. And I think there's even more travel now because the towns are smaller, and more people are playing in different communities. And so you're driving upwards of 2 hours every day, one direction. And then when you did play, you played the whole province. So Yorkton played, Swift Current, Moose Jaw, Regina, there was lots of travel involved to play a hockey game, even as a 12-year-old. Where in the city you grew up, I always told when I coached my son in Toronto, I said, you guys are spoiled because you think it's expensive, but every rink's 20 minutes away. Road game, home game, everything's 20 minutes. And we really don't, I can find a team that can beat us 20 minutes away. I don't have to go to any tournaments anywhere. Toronto is actually special in that way for hockey, in that there's so much competitiveness because of population. You didn't have to travel to find teams that were good for competition and stuff. So that was a bonus for the Toronto area. But in Saskatchewan, I think it's the commitment that you have to make at a young age from the parents. Then it rubs on to the players probably because the parents are telling their kids, listen, if I'm going to drive this far, you better try when you're on the ice. There's no not trying if I'm driving 2 hours to a hockey practice.
Well, I think you probably hit the nail on the head with a couple of things. Well, one of which you kind of said but didn't say, but in the wintertime, as a Saskatchewan boy growing up, mean, all the best athletes were hockey players, right? Because there was really, like you said, there wasn't too much else to do. So I think a lot of that, the gravitas towards hockey was like, you're playing it, like if you're a good athlete, you're playing it. So when you get all the best athletes doing one thing, I think that helps your chances. And the other side is, I mean, which we've talked about, is kind of that farm mentality. Like my dad grew up in Roxton, Saskatchewan. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah.
Small little town. And he tells me stories of just like what the lifestyle was like, which was markedly different from what it was like for me growing up in Vernon, British Columbia, right? We had 5 acres, but I wasn't picking rocks after school or, the things that he had to do, right? Do you think like that type of, I don't know, like that type of work ethic? Did you grow up on a farm? Is that what was
I
that
grew
your
up on a farm.
upbringing
Yeah,
too?
we're farmers still. Yep, grew up on a farm, and I think there's a work ethic, and you make it sound better than it is, but it's just you worked, but work wasn't called work. That was just what you did, and I think that applies to a lot of things when kids play sports. Is, well, if we're doing it hard because you're used to the physical labor, and that was just part of it. And another thing was you did it for a while. You didn't just, okay, we're going to work, it's going to be an hour. No, you're there all day. It's and so you I think a lot of players appreciate when you get to the city and you tried out for your first junior team or what it was. You're going, if I make the team, I don't have to go home and work on top of going to school. So there was that carrot to stay in the city with the city kids and play hockey. And back then when there was fighting, I often tell people when I speak, I said, well, it's probably easier making it when I played than it is today. It's more one-dimensional today because the fourth line guy is really skilled. Like there's so much skill involved that every level of your hockey team is really skilled. Where when I tried out, if you weren't good enough, and you probably left your own small town as the best player in town at that age, but when you got to the big city, you realize there's a lot of kids that are good hockey players. So you said, if I beat the guy up, I can stay as well. So you're like, you found different, that's when when you tell players that you have to change as you get older. You don't know when that is because you're going to find out somebody's better than you and you have to adapt or change how you play the game. And, those were options back then that you could come out, or Joey Kosher comes out as, he's 2 years older than I was. He was the best player at that age group coming out of Kelvington and area. By the time he gets to junior, I guess I'm beating guys up to stay in the league. That, so that's, and then, he still had points, but everybody was so scared of him. He could do what he wanted on the ice. But that's how he ended up making it as a tough guy. He had to change. He didn't leave town as the tough guy. He left town as the best player, but then adapted with the Saskatoon Blades. And then he, has a 15-year NHL career. But I think that's where players learn to adapt. That's the biggest thing with players of any time now or then, was adapting as you get older.
Right. Yeah, no, great points. Back to that farm, you talked about work not being work. It's just what you did. And I think that there's something to be said for that because, you got to show up. I remember a conversation I had with Tom Laidlaw, same thing, kind of same upbringing and just sort of like his roots and what was his dad was all about and what he had to do, to live, to be part of the family. Right. And it was, you don't get not to do it. Right. Like the cows need to be milked, in his scenario. Right. It didn't matter what the temperature was.
Twice a day, whether they likes it or not.
Yeah, exactly. So whether you like it or not, you're doing it, and I think that mentality is a little bit lost. One, where you get brought up, but even generationally, right? I think it's a little bit easier now. Kids are, it's like what they want to do right now or what they don't want to do, and they're not really forced to do some things. So when you show up at the rink and now you're a hockey coach, I see that quite a bit, right? Oh, today the light switch is on for so-and-so, right? And tomorrow it's off, right? So, but that consistency, as you know, is a pretty big attribute for players, right?
It's a huge thing, and just not just in sports, but in life, is if you can show up and work and learn as you're working, you will catapult yourself in today's world because of technology and what kids grow up with today. They're on to the next idea, rather than no, I gotta hang in there and do this. And we didn't know that's what we were doing back then, but really right. You were hanging in and figuring it out and doing one thing, where today you get to move on to the next idea so quickly. And it's tough for these kids to, watching my son play in the American League, I said, you're learning how to be in NHL, they call it, you're learning how to be a pro, which means every day. Like they're teaching you and you think you know how to do it, but really you don't. And then you're also adapting. You leave minor hockey and all that as the skill guy, but now you got to learn to be the fourth line player. And most kids can't make that adaptation to learning how to, okay, I'm a role guy now. Now I got to be really good, work really hard for 10 minutes of the game. That's all I'm getting, but I still got to, and that's a learning process. And some players get it and some they just don't. And it's not right or wrong. It's just that's how it is.
Yeah. Well, and that is one thing that I talk with the players I work with about, because you've mentioned a few times now, like that leveling up, right? When you do level up in a league, for most players, unless you're, a prodigy, you don't just get to be on the power play first time you show up at camp, right? Yeah. So like you have to learn these different nuances of the game that maybe you didn't even know were nuances of the game, and maybe you don't even enjoy them that much, right? And that's the disconnect, because I don't really want to be on the PK, right? I want to be on the PP. Yet, now you have to find whatever passion within that role and like learn that role so you can end up doing what you want to do. And I think that type of persistence and that type of, passion, I guess, really just for the game as a whole, right? That I just don't like hockey because I get to toe drag and score goals, but I like hockey, these other elements too, right? So I can continue to do that for a longer period of time.
Yeah, no, it's the whole package now. The kids today probably it's harder because it's the whole world. You go back to the 60s and earlier, all the players came from Saskatchewan, Quebec, and Ontario. Were the just of the league in the NHL, and then it spread to the rest of Canada and the States, and now it's the world. There's a lot of players vying for the 32 teams. It doesn't get easier because there's more teams, and everybody is coached well now in general compared to growing up with everybody's dad just opening and shutting the door. I said there's a whole level, and it happens so young, where they're playing organized hockey, and the players really don't mature, and they don't know that strength, mentally, and the whole package till about 23, 24, 25. I used to tell the kids, and when I'm speaking to them, I said, don't forget about the midget draft, the Bantam draft, the junior draft, NHL draft. It's the phenoms, the prodigies, like you said, that make that next step at 15, at 18. I said, the rest of you don't become who you are till you're about 23, 24. And that's when the college players finish college. The junior guys go and play 2-3 years or more in the minors. And at that age now, at 23, 24, you're strong enough, you think the game, and you figured out, do you love it or like it? Because if you love it, you change how you play to be able to make it. And it doesn't happen at 20. It's hard for kids to understand that, but you are learning even though you think you aren't.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's part of the scenario, being humble enough to realize you don't know it all. I mean, I was there. I mean, you think you don't know what you don't know, I guess, is the biggest thing, right? And to be able to ask the questions and be able to look for mentors and to be able to, like I said, be vulnerable enough, I guess is a right way to put it, to admit that, hey, there's more out there for me to learn, right? Like, how do I get better?
Yeah, no, I tell my son, and he still probably doesn't do it because I probably wouldn't have at my time. You're a quiet kid coming up. I said, instead of stewing over it, go talk to the coach. And it doesn't have to be the head coach, the assistant coach who gets to know the players better than the head coach even. I said, you might not like the answer, but you'll get an answer. And don't be upset at the answer, but you can also express yourself. And they're not going to say you're right, but something may tweak them as well. Like there'll be something that comes here, but don't stew over. Just ask questions. I always tell players, just ask questions. Then you don't put anybody on a defensive because you're asking the question.
Yeah. And they're able to do that now. You're 10 years older than me. And I'm sure in your area, when you just came up, there was a, jump, and you said, "Oh, hi, sir." And that was the end of it. Right. And then even in our time, there wasn't too much back and forth with the coach. You'd sort of wait until they called you in. And then you'd have your meeting with them, which mostly you would just, sit there and listen. Right. But now today's player, and that's one of the things that the coaches are saying more, like they ask questions and they want answers, and obviously the good coaches aren't telling them what they want to hear all the time. You already said that. It might not be an answer you want to hear, but they're more than willing to sit there and take your question. So I really encourage players to do that too.
Well, it's so good. Like I laugh during the middle of the game when I watch the TV now, and you'll see the iPad come across the bench and the players, and I'm like, in our day, we just told them we had our guy, and then it wasn't until VHS tape 48 hours later that they tell you no, and you knew you didn't have them, but you just lied on the bench and you wanted to deal with it 24 hours later. Where right now they just bring the iPad to you and go, no, yeah, it was your guy. And so, but now you're like you said, like in our day, breaking down tape and VHS, that was a punishment. Remember, you had to sit for hours after a practice just to break down that one little 2-minute thing that they wanted to show you, because they had to find it, bring it. Everybody was sitting there watching. Where today, the night, right after the game, they all get, here's your 22 shifts. Like they all get it. And I said, how great's that? You can teach yourself, because you might think it one way, then you watch going, no, I wasn't that good that shift. And these guys they have so much, and kids today learn off video, like, because they do it on technology with what they grew up with, where we didn't grow up with video and stuff like that. It was basically told and stuff, and that was it. Or you had to learn because the coaches didn't communicate as well. So if you didn't figure it out, you may have just got moved on and you don't know what you did wrong.
All right. Yeah, no, for sure. There wasn't too much telling, what they wanted or didn't want. You just had to do it, and hopefully you figured it out on your own. You mentioned Joey Kosher already. I mean, yourself was obviously recognized as a real tough customer. Is that something to be said of like the upbringing as well? Is that Kelvington? Like, was it tough at school? Was there fights all the time, or how did that work?
Yeah, not really, other than on the ice. But there was no real fighting until junior hockey. But Joey was a tough kid growing up all the way through. He just didn't turn on. He was tough as nails. He always had the baby face, so nobody thought he was that tough if you didn't know, because today I don't think he can grow a mustache, but it's he was baby faced and looked younger than he was, and was tough as nails and was smiling doing it. And not a big guy, 6 feet, 6'1" a little bit, but probably the hardest puncher that anybody's seen. Maybe him, Tony Twist, back in the day, Twister just after him a bit, but he had skill leaving Kelvington too. Like he was the guy for his age, and then got to go to the next level. And I remember my first training camp I was on. It was Joey was making the team. My older brother was making the Saskatoon Blades Dawn, but Dave Brown was there too. So you had Dave Brown, Joey Kosher, Daryl Stanley. All these guys were on the team at Saskatoon ahead of me. So that was the first time I ever played forward as a 14-year-old. They said, you're going to play in a line with Roger Korko, who ended up with the Islanders a bit, and Dave Brown. He'll protect you out here. Because those guys would make about 10 cuts themselves in one fight in training camp, and everybody else would, okay, that's enough. I'm not going to play junior. Because the old days of training camps back, 2-a-days, and it was just a war. Nothing made sense when you really think about hockey. How we did training camps in the old days didn't make any sense on picking the best players.
So I want to take one more break here to thank Verbero Hockey and Andy Sutton with Verbero. I've been working with them for about a year now, using their products. I use their jerseys and their game wear for my spring teams. I use their stick. My boys use their sticks. They just created junior line model hockey sticks. So they got a 15 flex, 25 flex, 35, 45, all the way up. They didn't have those before. They do have the lightest stick on the market. Their stick is fantastic. And right now, I know that sticks are really hard to come by. This episode right now is being aired in February of 2022. There's a supply chain issue. A lot of sports stores don't have sticks in, and you have to wait for them even from the online stores. But Verbero has a great stockpile of sticks right now. So if you want to go to verbero.com /Podolin, you can get 5% off your sticks. And they offer them at a discounted price compared to what you would see in the local store. That's what Verbero is all about. They don't go to the retail outlets. They go direct to the consumer, so they can offer top quality products at a substantial discount to what you'd be paying in the store for the top of the line Bauer, CCM, what have you. So anyways, if you're in a stick crunch and you're looking, go check out Verbero. Like I said, verbero.com. That's VERBERO.com /Podolin. Podollan, Podollan, and you'll get your 5% off the stick there. And the stick is to your door if you're in Canada within the week. Usually, they come out of Ontario. We got ours in 5 days, and yeah, it was great. Got right into the lineup, and TJ got his first hat trick the other day with it. So he's all jacked on it. So anyways, yeah, lightest stick in the market. Really good product. Really good game work. Check it out. Now back to the episode with Wendel Clark. But yeah, it got out the people. I mean, right or wrong, I guess there was definitely like a carving out process. Like I remember even, I played junior in '96, and I've had that conversation on here before. Like you had to love it. You said like it or love it, right? Like you had to love it because it was hard. Even as somebody that I would call myself a goal scorer, like we ended up in scraps. I mean, I think I had 12 scraps as a 16-year-old, and that wasn't even what I was there to do, But there was a level of toughness that you had to have, and you couldn't really escape it because you couldn't pretend it,
Yeah, no, and it wasn't that you had to win them. You just had to be. We called it just show up. It's because teams that didn't have the toughest guy. If you played team tough, if your team all stuck together, you would overcome any kind of single toughness because your team. And that you look at all the best teams really in any era. If you have some team toughness with skill, as which means you play as a team, you stick together, doesn't matter the situation. Odds are you'll end up winning. You'll find a way to win.
Right.
And that's one thing that hasn't changed.
I agree. You talked earlier about like the kind of like like it's not that much. There's not that much layering. Like the same player exists on the fourth line, a lesser version that is on the first line now in today's game, right? Everyone can skate. Everyone has skill. One of the things that I've just been really talking about on the program here the last little while, because I've been going to a lot more junior games now, and I've been watching a lot more NHL games. Just how dynamic a player can be when they are physical in today's game, because it's so rare.
It's rare. That's what I said. If you do that one thing and the hitting has changed, the way I hit, it hurt you as much as the player you're hitting. Two guys come to a dead stop. Sooner or later, you're going to get. But as I call it in today's hitting, if you can finish your check, and I call it the 30 to 50%. You keep your momentum going, but you've made the opposition come to a stop. They have to regroup. They have to keep their head up. They have to keep their mind open that something may happen. But if you just stick check all the time, everybody can do that if you're a good skater and you think the game well. But if you do that, plus you finish your check a little bit, there's a dimension in the game now, whether it be Wilson in Washington or you don't even have to be a big guy. The guy we just lost going to Edmonton. He just plays hard, finishes his check. He's only 175, 185 pounds, but he's in your face. And if you just do that, because there's not a lot of it now, you do stand out.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's sort of, as the pendulum has swung right to the skill side, I watch youth hockey too, right? Like it's so much different now that those players are the players that you can get noticed. You want to get noticed by a scout, like every shift where if I see a hit in a game, like it's like, oh, I notice it because it's just so rare. Right. So if you do want to play hard in today's game and make people pay the price a little bit, like, boy, you're adding a dimension. And what do these NHL teams even want now? Right. Like they want guys that can play. Of course you have to play, but if you can play heavy and if you can be mean and if you can keep the opposition have their head up, as you say, like, my gosh, like you're a valuable asset.
And it's a value that you maybe don't notice every night for the 80 games because they're long seasons, but come playoff, when the season changes just a little bit, your minutes go up. All of a sudden the game's played more in the middle, because if you don't get to the middle, you don't score. Like scoring's never really changed. If you don't go to the same areas, you're not going to score. And that's been every era is the same. And with the hockey being the skill level now, they keep you to the outside. So you have lots of puck possession. You look really good, but nothing gets done. Right. Come playoff time. You still have to go to that area. Yeah. And that's where those guys that finish their checks in battle, they are most valuable.
I read that were you drafted to the NHL first overall as a defenseman?
Yes, I was defenseman of the year in the Western Hockey League, probably Canadian Hockey League. Drafted first overall. I got to training camp and they said, okay, you're a forward.
Can you like that? I can't believe that. Like that blows my mind. Can you imagine that happening today?
Yeah, no, I can't see Connor McDavid walking in to say, not that I was ever a Connor McDavid, but no, I think I'll play where I want to play. But that was, I do whatever it takes. Now, in defense of the Leafs back then, they did it to Gary Leeman, was a defenseman, best defenseman in the WHL, became a forward as well for the rest of his career. So Toronto had that habit of doing, I think they were drafting the best player at that time of the draft, which is still kind of what the first round is to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But had I been drafted to Pittsburgh or New Jersey or the Islanders or whoever else was high, I was going to be a defenseman. All my interviews, I was a defenseman. Had I been drafted to somebody else, and the World Juniors was the first time I played forward ever. I played in the 6 games round robin. I played 3 games forward and 3 games defense. So the Leafs must have watched the 3 games I played forward at World Juniors. So at the World Juniors at that time, because it was in Finland, they took 8 defensemen in case somebody got hurt. So John Miner from the Regina Pats and myself, who was an offensive physical defenseman as well, we both played forward and defense in World Juniors.
That's wild. So yes, you won gold there in '85. I was gonna say that we have. I won gold in '96 with the team too. Like, was that one of your highlights of your career to be able to win gold there?
Yeah, it would have been, because it's the one thing I always tell people, getting to play for a Team Canada team is unbelievable, because you're even more back then than today. You have no idea. You go to training camp and you have no idea who these other kids are, but everybody's good. Like, it doesn't, they're in, our training camp was in Belleville. So there's, 50 guys at training camp. There is no summer camps leading up to all this stuff. That was just, okay, there's the camp to see it. So you meet all these players from across Canada for the first time, and you get to play for Team Canada, and you don't realize till you play in the NHL who some of the guys that didn't make it. So my year, Gary Roberts got cut, Joe Nieuwendyk got cut, Todd Gill got cut, and Patrick Roy didn't make it. Think of that lineup that didn't make it, and the 3 of them, I think, are Hall of Famers now. So that's how hard it is to make. And so then when you get a chance to win with the group, and you might have been a star player when you left your junior team, and now you're a role player on the best team, it's fun, because you're meeting guys and playing at such a high level, and you're playing for your country.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And really, I mean, I've had a few guys on here that have won gold, and it's always in their top 3, regardless if they played 1,000 games in the NHL or not. Like, you really have to win like something grander, right? Whatever that is, a Stanley Cup or maybe Olympics or something, to really like replace that. Because those are formative years too, as you know, right? 19, 20 years old, 18 years old, like, to represent your country at that age and to come back with a gold medal is pretty special. Let's dive into just that whole transitioning to forward. Like the learning, like, was there a big learning curve for you? I think it's easier probably to go from defense to forward than forward to defense, I think. But how was that? Like, when did they tell you? How did you find out? What was your
first day at training camp? I walk in and they see, okay, left wing with Courtnall and Lehman. That's how I found out. I read it on the door of the dressing room. And so I didn't really argue, but as long as I stayed in the NHL and didn't go back to junior, I was happy. But I was always an offensive defenseman anyway. But the game back then, like, when I coached my kids in hockey, I said, you guys are as organized now at 13 as I ever was in the early days of the NHL. Like, when I played forward in the NHL for my first year in '85, the only rule I had was third guy high. That was our whole forechecking system, third guy high. Think of it, how kids are coached and how NHL, how you play as you learned the game, how much more involved you are now than you were then. And no wonder Montreal won a lot of cups, or one of the Islanders, or if you were coached well and put together, why teams would have a great run back then, because the other teams weren't as organized, didn't do as much. You were going really on the talent of your players only, not as much of a system. And Toronto wasn't the only team like that. Other teams were the same.
Yeah.
Kids today, they coming out of minor hockey, they've learned a lot in positioning and playing, and it's not like it's complicated, because nothing's complicated. It's just, there's your role. So if everybody knows it, it's easier for everybody on the ice. But if you're just on your own, you're not playing. The other team can pick you apart pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I sometimes wonder if I overcoach now. Like I got 3 boys, 12, 11, and 9, right? So they're right in those formative years of hockey where, NHL is the biggest thing. I mean, it's just like that great hockey age, right now, like second year Pee Wee, first year Pee Wee. And so I'm coaching them and we're really working on like the defensive structure, at least in our own end. Like I try and keep them like free flowing and creative in the offensive zone and through the neutral zone, but try and give them some foundation and some structure in their own end. Like stuff that I didn't get taught until junior hockey.
No,
really,
you didn't
and then
learn it
into
until
pros.
junior or later. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, do you think that do you think that these kids maybe are overcoached now? Like where they're, like everything is kind of so structured and positional. And every time they're on the ice, there's somebody with a whistle in their mouth. I just wonder if some of the creativity gets potentially lost or what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, depending how they're coached and what the pressure of the coach has to win, or is he playing to make kids better? Because winning doesn't mean you're making anybody better. Because everybody thinks, if you're winning, they must develop. I said, no, if they grew up in the city of Toronto, you just recruited the best 15 players. You didn't make them win because you outcoached somebody most of the time. But there are good coaches. And I understand why coaches are paid in kids hockey now. They're paid at everything else, whether it be gymnastics or this or that. And the coaches spend a lot of time at the rinks now with these kids. Where we were a couple days a week, they're 6 days a week now at the rink, whether it be games and practices. But I think to a certain extent, I think people may hate to hear it, but the skills stuff is almost overcoached, the individual skills stuff, because the game, and I always explained to people when my kids were growing up, and I'd say, who's your favorite player? Because our kid would be getting so fancy on our team. Well, Sidney Crosby. And they said, well, go watch a Sidney Crosby game. He doesn't do any of the stuff you're trying. He's simple. He just shoots at the net. His biggest highlight goal that everybody remembers was the Olympic gold medal in Vancouver. He just shot it, got the puck, came to him, just shot it between the goalie's legs or something. Like there wasn't nothing fancy about it. It was just hard work, right spot. And we miss, sometimes we do so much skill, we don't do enough of the hard work part. Where in the old days, it was all hard work, stops and starts with no puck and no skill. Now we're doing so much skill, and sometimes we forget about the hard work part. I think in systems with kids, you just do the simple. I say do the 5 of diamonds in front of the net, support. If you take the middle away, the other team's not going to score. They can have the puck all day long on the outside, especially in kids hockey. If you always start from the middle in your own end, and offensively the same thing. If you get to the middle, you can score. So that, the two things, hockey and soccer, if you don't get to the middle, the ball or the puck, it's not going to go in. So you can keep it on the outside all day long because nobody shoots the puck well yet. Goalies are actually probably better than the shooters are at that 13. They're starting to grow, but the kids don't shoot that well yet, or they don't know where it's going. So you still have to get to the middle. So defensively, I always used to tell the kids, back to the middle, all 5. And then and then offensive end, if you don't get the puck to the middle, you're not going to score either. Because I'd ask in a meeting in the dressing room, I'd say to the goalie, and outside the dots, blue line, the horseshoe, I said to the goalie, if you can see the puck, will you stop it? And every time they go, yeah, if I see a long shot, there's nobody in the league that shoots that hard yet that I can't just stop it.
Yeah.
So then I tell the forwards in the room, see that? You're not going to score from way out there unless you get to here. So I used to use it in both and keep it simple, but and we were fortunate enough on a team. I always went with one less forward and one less defenseman. So all forwards had to play every position. I used to do the numbers thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you didn't always get to play center. You didn't always get to play left or right wing. You had to play all the positions because you're trying to teach the kids. And sometimes it's the parents more than the kids. Is the more positions you can learn, the better chance you have of making the junior team, the college team, the pro team. Because the coach says, can you play over here? And you go, yeah, I have done that before. But if you've only ever played one position all the way up, you may be, not cutting yourself short because you don't want to play another position. Where learn them all, because who knows where you end up when you get older. I ended up at forward and I played defense my whole life.
That's insane. I still, that blows my mind. I can't believe a first overall selection gets just automatically told at training camp that he's going to be forward.
You're
Like,
a
that's
forward now, yeah.
insane to me. And good for you to be able to adapt. But I mean, yeah, I mean, couldn't be spoken from somebody who knows more about it than you. I mean, the ability to know more positions, it definitely makes you, well, it just increases your chances, like you said. You know, like you can play anywhere, and makes you more versatile, and it makes you a better asset to the team. Yeah, they get so stuck. Like I'm thinking right now, there is sometimes in games where I'll switch some of our forwards back to D and D up to forwards, usually if the game's a little bit out of hand one way or the other, just to get some exposure. But in practices, I try and mix some things up. They do try and specialize so early now where kids just think that, this is what I am. And it's, not only does it help you as a player, but helps you understand the game more, I think, right? Like,
Well,
if you go back.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
if you know the other players' positions well, then you understand why. Like you tell the players. So the defenseman, you're getting pressured. Where do you throw the puck? I don't know. I said just throw it behind the net. So then tell the forwards, what are the defense going to do when they get under pressure? I don't know. Go behind the net because that's what he's told to do. All of a sudden, it looks like a play, and it's not a play. It's just your release valve that. It's the farthest thing away from the other end, and you come up with the puck again. Yeah. And but you learn what the other position is. We'd have our defense and forward switch. Who does the one-on-one offensively and defensively? Learn how to skate, understand what the other player does, and at the real young age, almost at the Adam Pee-wee. Because when you're dealing with the parents in the cities, they go, "Well, my son's a defenseman or something, or a centerman." I said, "Do you ever ask why your son plays center?" And they go, "Why?" Because he gets to take the draw. That's the fun part of starting the game. You start with the puck. It's the face-off. So I said, let all the kids take the face-off because I really don't care what your position is at 7, 8, 9. You're kind of learning it.
Yeah.
But let them all take the face-off at certain times. I used to say, I don't care who takes the draw. I just, what your role is after the draw. That's it. Yeah. Because that's the one carrot that every boy or girl wants at the start of the game. Yeah, is to take the face off. That's the fun part.
Yeah, they love it. Speaking of you're saying like the ability to know what is hard. Like I once I got done with pro hockey and I came back and wanted to still play hockey, it was tough to find like a spot where it didn't, like being a forward in men's senior at 32, it wasn't really fun for me because you can't really try and like whatever. So I ended up being a goalie. I bought all goalie gear. And I'm like, I'm going to try this tender thing out. And my gosh, like, I wish I would have done that or had an exposure to that earlier, because like knowing what's difficult as a goalie, right? Like how to see, like even the release of a shot, like all those little nuances as a goalie, like would have like makes you a better goal scorer, obviously, right? Same thing as a D-man. If you know as a D-man, it's difficult when a guy does whatever, like you can do that then as a forward. So I do think it helps you as a just as a hockey player in general, to know what the different positions, what the tendencies are, what's difficult, what's not. And especially at a young age, like parents especially are the ones that get so wrapped up in where little Johnny's playing and what position he's supposed to be. And, just relax about it, learn the game, right? Learn it all.
Learn it all, and being as a parent, you're trying to put your child in the healthiest position possible. Mm-hmm. You grew up in Saskatchewan, a small town. Well, we had 12 guys that made the team because there was only 12 trying out. We're in the city of Toronto. There's so many different teams. So don't be so upset that just go to a different team. Like, because there's I don't know what, there's 12 AAA teams. There's 36 AA teams. There's 250 A team. Like, just change teams so you and be in a healthy situation. Don't, when you're in the cities, don't be stuck and upset. And sometimes it's you have to play, because we grew up in the town of Kelvin. So till Bantam, I basically played house league hockey at the level of a city, a small town, till 13. Then I played in the city and at home. I played in 3 teams when I was 13 and 14. The 2 in Kelvington, Bantam and Midget, and Bantam in the city. You could do that back then. So I played on 3 teams. But parents think that if their kid is too good for an age level that they're not learning. I said, no, they're learning how to get confidence with the puck. It's theirs. They're doing the fun part of the game. So sometimes they want to move them up to play at the best level. Now they don't get to score. They don't get to touch the puck. They're good enough to make the team, but they're not good enough to do what's fun. And so watch moving your kids. Too much competition. Let them have, because there comes a time when you're not the goal scorer anymore. You have to learn all these other. So never take the fun part away just because you're trying to be so fast. I think a ex-player agent said, I've never seen a player not make it because they took their time getting there. But I've seen lots of players that try to get too good too quick, and they're either strength isn't there to play older, or they're mentally not at the same age as the kids they're playing with. And all of a sudden they get knocked down a peg, and they don't. Once you lose confidence, as we all know, that confidence is huge at anything.
Yeah. Stacey Roos said on this podcast, who's the assistant GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I remember it because it was pretty profound. He was just like, confidence takes a long time to earn, and it's really quick to lose. And he took that path with his son Austin, who's in his draft year this year, and just never rushed him. Kept him at home as long as he could. Didn't rush him. Didn't want him to play at 16 in the WHL. Just wanted him to, whatever. Keep that confidence. Keep feeling good about himself. He's like, the game's hard enough. You don't need to make it harder, right? No, by keep pushing him in these uncomfortable situations. So I think that's pretty good advice there for sure. What you went to Notre Dame, correct?
I went to Wilcox at Notre Dame 2 years.
So that's like the original hockey academy. At least that's what I kind of think of it as. Like it was a place for these young men and women to go and to play hockey, and you're away from home at a young age. And now these academies are all over the place. What was your experience with Wilcox?
Well, that was the first place not knowing if I'd make it. So I went there as a 15-year-old. So that's when Bantam and midget was 15, 16-year-old. Made the same team. And, that was the first time I went to a training camp where there's 140 kids from the school trying out for that midget team to be on the best, because that was the hockey type school then, right? And so making that team was probably one of the biggest things that I got to do as a 15-year-old. And then just the whole thing where it was so much more advanced, because we were on the ice 7 days a week in there. When we play the city teams, whether it be Saskatoon, Regina, Yorkton, they were still on the ice 3 to 4 days a week. The city teams only practice twice a week. You might play 1 or 2 games. So a lot of times it wasn't that we were way better in skill, because we really only lose 5 games a year, but we were on the ice so much. By the third period, you just rolled over teams because you're in such good shape. You did so many things in repetition. And then now with the hockey academies everywhere, and these Bantam and midget teams in the cities have these programs where they're on the ice like junior teams now. Notre Dame has a tougher time. They're not the only team that's on the ice that much. Right. All these other places are mimicking what they started back in, I guess I want to say 78 would have been something like that when they started getting really good.
All right. When you how was that? So you had a brother, which you already mentioned, like with your parents and leaving home at that age. Was it, was there someone, like, was mom trying to pull you back, or was she supportive, and were you the one guiding the ship there, or how did that whole decision get made?
Well, my older brother went first. He went as basically a role playing defenseman. He only ever played junior tier 1, and then coached and managed lots of junior teams. But he went there, made the team. He was 4 years older than myself, so he would have broke the ice out of leaving and leaving home. And then I was second, and then my younger brother was third, going through there, and then ended up going to the Regina Pats earlier. But that was you really learn to grow up. It's the kids looking after kids, right? The grade 12 students are looking after. I went there in grade 9, so you're the bottom rung starting out, but you really learn to respect each other, not just as in the hockey, but the whole life skills that you get at a school. I always say a lot of the good boarding schools, there's a lot of life skills that kids learn early, because it's not parents solving the problem, it's kids in general solving the problem.
Right. And do you look back on Wilcox? I mean, because I went there, actually, I should have mentioned that. So at pretty much the same age, so 14. I grew up in Vernon, British Columbia, which is a million miles away, both in topography, geography, everything, right, to Wilcox, Saskatchewan. And we heard about Notre Dame and, the legendary status, the likes of you and, the people that had gone through there. And I was a good player back in the day. And I was like, well, where's the best place to play? And so we went out there, and I was an only child, so no brothers, no sisters. And we toured it for a weekend. My dad dropped me off there, and he was going to allow me to go there if I wanted to. And it was just, yeah. I mean, I couldn't do it. Right. I was like, I don't think this is right for me. And
Well,
maybe
no,
it might have been the best thing for me. Who knows? Right. But I kind of turned around and went the other way, and we never ended up staying. Did you enjoy you went there for 2 years. Did you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, no, I loved it because it's easier for somebody coming from a really small town, because, Wilcox is a town of 110 people, and then the school adds another 300. So that's the whole community right there, right is basically the school. So if you come, city kids had a tough adaptation to it, because you come from everything to do to nothing. It's where I come from farm life, where this is normal. All of a sudden you have roommates. You never had roommates before. So that the transition was easier that way. Right now, I think it's harder on them recruiting, because these schools everywhere have bigger system, where Notre Dame is still, if you're going for football or volleyball or hockey, that's what you're doing.
Right.
But if you're committed to that, it's a lot of fun. There's that early transition, that first month and a half of school as your grade 9, 10 student. That's a tough growing up period, because you're on your own. And like you said, it's the kids solving the problems. But if you're an athlete, you loved it once you were there, because you were in sports, whether it be hockey or whatever you did in phys ed, it was everything you do was with sports. Outside of the school, it might not have been hockey all the time, but you're always being active with other kids. And that was the great thing. And my first year I went there. My second year, I actually made the Saskatoon Blades as a 16-year-old. And, that's okay. I was in my billet house. That was the happiest day of your life. You finally made the WHL. And my dad was driving the combine. He radioed my mom and says, "Go pick up Wendel in Saskatoon. He's going back to midget. He's not going to play on the junior team." And so I was never so mad as then have to play another year of midget. But probably the best thing that happened, because I got to be the best player in the loop kind of thing. And it's the confidence you gain, just what you could do on the ice, where he knew, because of how I played. My older brother, who was on the Blades at the time, and him probably thought, you know what, he may not make it. That's pretty, because that year, I think there was 5 bench clearing brawls between the Regina Pats and the Saskatoon Blades alone. So he says, he gets caught in one of these wars as a 15, 16-year-old. It's not going to look good, because of how I played physical to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think they were thinking ahead, because of how I played, that you're not a 20-year-old yet. You're still just 15, 16. You're not where I think sometimes parents think, well, the kids are the same size out there. I said, no, that 20-year-old's might look the same size on the ice from us in the stands, but that 16-year-old and 20-year-old, one's got man strength and one doesn't. And they look the same on the ice with equipment, but there really isn't. And because of physical fitness today, there's a big difference between a 20-year-old on the ice and a 16-year-old now. Yeah. Where in our day, it was just a big farm boy was big and strong. There was no extra conditioning that made him stronger. He was just stronger. Yeah. Where today, with the physical training that kids do, that 20-year-old's a lot stronger in junior than the 16-year-old is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. So So dad made the call from the combine and said, no, Wendel's not playing, and no discussion with you. You just found out over a phone call.
Over a phone call, knock on the door, picked me up from the billets in Saskatoon, took me back to the dorm in Notre Dame.
Wow. Hey, so that was a tough call, but like you said, I guess it turns out to be the right one. Hey, in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's just the skill level. You got to do everything. At the time you're not thinking that, but you're doing every crucial. You're playing midget hockey, or at the right age, every first power play, every penalty kill, every situation, you got to be in it.
Right.
Where if I'd been playing junior, I'd have been the 7th, 8th defenseman. I'd have been the last on the power play, the last on the penalty kill, because the Blades were a good team then. Yeah. And so you wouldn't have got that quality ice time. Not that would have held you back, but you wouldn't have I'd have done more watching than I did playing.
Right. Did you, I mean, your draft year is obviously way different even than my draft year, and way different than the draft year of the guys now. When I'm talking about media coverage and publicity and everything else that goes along with that, was there what was your draft year like? Was there at any point was there tension? Was there nerves? Did you know where you sat in the scheme of things? Do you remember what that was like for you that year?
Yeah, after my first year, I guess starting the second year, I knew I was rated in the first round type thing. You knew that kind of. And then after World Juniors, I guess that's when we won the gold medal. I knew I was going somewhere in the top 5. And then the season ended, and we lost out early first round of the playoffs. But I knew 1, 2, or 3. But Toronto never tipped their hand who they were going to take. Craig Simpson said, "Oh, I don't want to go," and then he changed his mind, said, "Okay, I'll go now." So he ended up not. And who was it? Craig Simpson, myself, Craig Willanen, Jim Sandlak were kind of the names in the top 3, 4, 5 there. So I didn't know till draft day that I was actually going number 1. Toronto didn't tip their hand. Craig Simpson, maybe that was the spot to go. He gets to play with Mario, then Gretzky. So who said maybe number 2 was better?
Yeah, right. You never do know. That's so crazy, that draft. It really does, shape some careers, right? I mean, if you get in the right environment and with the right players,
there's
and
so much environment, whether the organization's environment, do they bring you along? Do they throw you to the wolves? And it depends on the personality of the player. If you're a follower, you get in a bad situation, you might go in the wrong direction if you don't have a good leadership group, or maybe, so you never really know. That's what stage, some of the kids I was coaching growing up with my son, and they're now playing in the NHL, and the parents said, "Well, our team's not that good." I said, "Really? You're worried about what NHL team you're playing on? Just sit down and watch your son play hockey. Don't worry." Rare it is that somebody gets a chance to play at that level, and then you're dissecting the team he's playing on. No, just have fun with it, because they're at the highest level.
Just take a short break here to thank you for listening to this episode, and thank you for being with me for all my episodes, and to thank you for sharing the episodes, and for ranking the episodes, and for reviewing the episodes, and all the stuff that you do to make this thing possible, to make it worth my while to go out and find these amazing guests and to have these conversations. I do thank you. And as the podcast grows, we're reaching more people, and more people are giving me direct messages and are giving me thank yous and are saying what a difference the podcast has made for their player or for them as parents. So I thank you to allow me to do what I do and to help impact people and players to be the best they can be, and to learn from these discussions and conversations. So thanks again. Every time you like a social media post, or every time you recommend the podcast or one of my services, you're doing someone else a favor, because they're being exposed to the program and to the information and to the services, which I'm very proud of all of them. So the more people that can be helped and supported, the better. So once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to the end. And now back to the conversation with Wendel Clark. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing too. And that's the funny thing is, like, sometimes, like a team like Ottawa, let's say, or maybe even Montreal now this season, like, you get a chance to play on that team. Yeah, it's not a great team, but be thankful that it is not a great team, because you're probably not playing for Tampa. You're in the minors for 5 more years. If you're lucky to get in there, right? So like some of these guys that get a chance and end up having established NHL careers is strictly because they were on a crappy team, right?
Yeah, no, your foot's in the door earlier. You prove yourself, where you might play on a good team. Like if you're getting drafted to our team with the Leafs right now, and you're a skill guy, our skill guys are all 23, 24 years old. Your Matthews, Marner, Nylander. Right? I said, that's a tough, if you're the skill guy, to step into that lineup in that role, boy, that's a tough one to fill. Because they're going to be here for a while. They're not going nowhere. So that's where, if you get to start with a lesser team, I get myself into the league. You're starting in Chicago right now, or Ottawa, or you get called up, sent down, called up. At least you're getting that carrot of games, because they're trying to see who they have. Yeah. Or when you're on the the Washingtons, the Torontos, they're just trying to. They've got their team. They're just trying to fill with pieces. They're not giving guys chances.
Right. Do you, looking back on your career, and you were always, I shouldn't say always, I mean, towards the end, like you said, things change as you get older and you establish yourself in the league. But when you came on the scene, especially out of junior, you definitely weren't shy of laying the body, definitely weren't shy of dropping the gloves, and you always were able to put the puck in the net. What did you identify more with? Did you identify more as being a goal scorer, or did you really like the fisticuffs and the rough stuff?
Yeah, all of it. I think I liked all of it. It came there's the skill part, and because we weren't a good team at the beginning, we'd make the playoffs, but we didn't have to have at 500 or under, you're still making the playoffs in the 80s. Yeah. And we were a pretty good team skill wise. But because you were losing a lot, because I played physical, you had to answer to what you did. In today's game, you don't have to answer to what you did. Like today, I can run over at Connor McDavid and stand there and look at the visiting bench and nothing happens. Where if I did that to Wayne Gretzky back then, there was a Semenko coming, followed up by a McClellan, followed up by a McSorley, followed up by, and so you had to pay the piper if you wanted to play that way, or you didn't play that way, and the game stayed calm.
Yeah.
And so because I liked playing physical, I would always have to answer the bell to somebody as an honest player. Okay, I hit your best player. I owe you something. And that's, when the players used to dictate the game. Where now it's done by rules. So it's a little different that way. Not a wrong, but it's sometimes I think it's harder on our finesse players in today's game because nobody on the ice can help them. As much as you say you have, the rules doesn't allow that guy to help protect you because he's going to be thrown in the box early. Yeah. In most cases, with the rules of the game today, not right or wrong, just how the game's changed. But if I'd gone to a more skilled team and the coach says, no, you're not fighting, we're winning the game anyway. Because in the old days, you're either up to something was happening or down to something was happening. That was really, especially in junior hockey, when you did those long road trips, that third game in 3 nights, the visiting team just made the game ugly because you knew you couldn't skate with the home team. There's your third and 3 nights on a Sunday, and then you're getting on a bus, and the bus would drop you off in front of the school to go to school Monday morning.
Yeah. Well, that was one. I mean, I still, of course, the game has changed, and we've talked about it, and there's less, fighting and the brutality, let's say, isn't what it was. But there's still there was a game last year where Philadelphia, I think they were in New York, and they lost 6-0 or 7-0, right? And I was like, okay, this is the Flyers, and I looked at the box score at the end of the game. There wasn't one fight that game. And I don't know, you say whether right or wrong or good or bad, but I was like, how do the Philadelphia Flyers lose 7-0 and not one guy's mad enough to get in a fight about it? That still just blows my mind, that's happening. And mind you, the Flyers don't have a great team, and maybe they need to get back to that a little bit, I don't know. How do you feel about that type of scenario?
No. When the game starts getting, there is a little bit of, it's probably how when we started to change in the 90s under Pat Burns coaching us, and that it was because Toronto is technically the hardest place to play at home because there's always 10 kids from Ontario that this is another home game for them. So we had, Bellows coming in and Gretzky and Coffey, and they were having big nights. So Pat Burns basically wanted us, listen, if they're going to beat us, they're going to be black and blue when they leave. You know what? Because they're good and they might beat us, but it wasn't going to be an easy one. And that was how he taught us. You had Gilmore's and that running our offense. But if the game was going to go sideways, he goes, make sure they're limping out of here. Make sure they understood it was a hard game when they won, when they left. And that was the mentality of that team. And there's still something to be said about that, where if I was playing it, if I'm a power forward right now and I'm playing against a defense that nobody hits at all on the other team on defense, they're all very good. I can be a better player because I don't have to lift my head up. I know I'm not getting a hit. I know at worst I get poke checked. So I have a lot of confidence on the ice when the worst thing that happens to me is a poke check. There's no physical harm at all. There's something, and playoffs do change. All of a sudden, that 5th and 6th defenseman, you didn't see that much in the regular season. You start seeing a lot come round 2, 3, 4, because they're playing hard in your face hockey against the other team.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. With you and your career, I read it in something that I read there, doing a little bit of research there, that you had a pretty bad back injury your second year, and then I noticed that you played 81 games in your next 3 seasons. Was that because of the back injury, or what happened there?
Yeah, no, I basically playing. I think our trainer was a boat mechanic in Toronto back, and all teams were the same way. We never had physical trainers. If you got hurt, you had the surgery end with the doctors. But then there was no rehab. Hockey was the latest sports league, I think, where there was good rehab at the rink with trainers and stuff. And now it's great. But back then, and so I went through every injury you think of. You just kept playing through it. I wouldn't have been the only one. All players played through stuff. But I ended up hurting my back. I think it was the last straw that says, no, and so I missed 100 games in a row starting my after about 15 games in my third season. I missed 100 games. Then I come back. Then I blew out my left knee, and then I blew out my right knee. So that was my 4 or 5 years there. I had the back and then 2 knee injuries. And that was, each knee injury was a 40-game injury. Back then, today it wouldn't have lasted long. But back then, remember, we used to cast the leg, and I only had a medial collateral injury. They'd cast the leg, so you'd lose everything. You didn't train, you didn't do anything because they put a cast on it.
Right.
Where today they'd have kept the whole leg. You'd have probably kept skating in today's world.
Right. So the 100 games, was that your back, and what was the back?
100 games was the back, and basically I went to London, England to find physio. I went to the Mayo Clinic. You name it in the world, I went somewhere to find it. Our doctors at the time says you may as well retire because you're not getting better. It's a back injury. You're done. So that was 2.5 years in. My team doctor said you're done. So I ended up playing 15 years basically on my own, going to find some place that can help. And then we ended up getting a trainer. Chris Broadhurst became the trainer who came in, and that was the first really knowledgeable person. And him and I spent 4 hours a day for the next 6 years, 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours at night before and after. He put in some huge time.
That's interesting. I was just talking to Chris the other day. I wanted to get him on the show, and we're going to set something up because he was there when I was there. He's great guy, obviously, and that aspect of getting to know the players. Like, I mean, he probably knows you as well as anybody, I would assume, right?
Yeah, no, you were spending so many hours at my early days of treatment because he became on as our head trainer. And because I took so much time with treatment, I'd do 2 hours before the team would get there. And then he would treat all the other players and practice. We'd practice. Then at night, I'd come back at 7 o'clock again, and I'd spend another couple hours with him. Yeah. And that was basically even when I was playing right up in through 94 when I got traded.
Was it a disc issue, or was it some type of?
Basically muscular, because you kept playing through stuff, and then you change how you play. So your body's always adapting and never really working the same again, whether it be you're playing like our day, if you're getting in fights today, you break your hand, you don't play anymore. In our day, you just made a bigger knob on your stick and you didn't fight with your right hand. You fought with your left. I never stopped playing when I broke my right hand. I would just make my stick would be like I was putting it around there because I couldn't close it. So you'd make a knob on your stick. So think of that. You're playing, but you can't shoot. You're just out there playing. But you're adapting how you play. And when I separated my right shoulder in junior and didn't miss a game. So you played through a separated shoulder in junior. We didn't have trainer. There was no, you just kept playing. If you did, so that was where today they're smarter. They can go, okay, you're settled down for a while because you're hurt.
Yeah. Wow. It would have been fun to watch a Wendel Clark an uninjured Wendel Clark go through his career, because actually that changes you as a player. I only had one surgery when it was on my shoulder, and I never came back from it the same guy, and it was just one. I think it's tough, right, to get through those injuries.
Yeah, especially if you're a physical player. It really, and I tell people probably the best specimen right in your time is Eric Lindros. You think of there's your best specimen as a hockey player, whether you're looking at a guy that's 240 pounds, 6 foot 4 or 5, can do everything, and he only plays 8 years because of health. Like, it takes it because he was a physical player. So if you're going to give it, sooner or later you're getting it back. Yeah. And it doesn't matter your size in sports. It's wear and tear. You watched Ovechkin start. When Ovechkin first started, he was hitting as many people as he was scoring. He was that prolific of a scorer, and finally he figured it out, going, I'm going to be sore if I keep up the hitting. So he really backed away on the physical play. Yeah. And now look at the length of his career, because he really only steps it up physical wise come playoff time, because he's such a good goal scorer. He could do that. But he figured it out early that I can't keep hitting guys, because it's and the size of the player changed. When I started, the best players, say your Trottiers, your Gretzky's, your all those, they were 185 pounds, 6 feet, 6'1", 5'10". And then by the end of my career, Matt Sundin was 235. Like, your best players that didn't play physical, you couldn't affect them anyway because they were bigger than the physical guys. That's how in your era, that's when, players, even the skill guys, Zamnoff in Chicago, people didn't realize he was 225 pounds. Yeah. You're not
Mario.
affecting him playing physical.
No, Mario was a big man too.
Mario's a big guy.
Yeah. What with your stick? So you were known for your wrist shot, of course. You know your release and everything else. I was watching some tape from you at one. I also remember when we were playing, but to me, I thought you always held your hands a little bit closer than most people do, and generated a lot of torsion and flex on those old wooden sticks at the
Yes.
time. How long was your stick, and like what about the wrist shot? Like, what do you think? Why do you think it was so effective for you, or how did you go about developing it?
Well, basically, growing up as a kid, played defense my whole life. My dad, because he bought the sticks, I wasn't allowed to slap the puck ever. So even on defense as a 10-year-old, or I had to wrist the puck to the net all the way through, just wrist shots. So growing up, and he used to take the stick. Remember, you'd heat up the old wooden sticks, and he'd straighten them all so they're dead straight, no curves allowed. So then you're really learning how to give somebody a kid today a straight stick and say, learn how to shoot. Well, you have to learn how to shoot heel to toe, because there's no strength when you're a youngster unless you learn to shoot heel to toe off your heel, especially with a straight stick. So that was learning, and you had to learn how to bend a wood stick because that was how it jumped. Or today, I'd love to be able to shoot the puck today. I think in old men's hockey, I use the Austin Matthews pattern, because he shoots quick, and his hands are close together. So a lot like mine, only quicker, because you don't have to work to bend the stick today. It's like a golf club. So, and that's Austin's probably the best at it as far as quickness, how it changes, because he's not like he's got the hardest shot in the game, but he's got the quickest shot. So that makes it look hard, because he's got it and then it's gone, because he doesn't have to drop his hand to shoot the puck. He just shoots it in stick handle form. And not many guys can do that. And he's perfected that. But that's the one thing is just getting it away, and goal scorers know where to shoot. A foot off the ice inside either post, even with my head down. That's in today's hockey. You tell kids, I said, most of the time they're not looking. The game's too fast. They're just goal scorers know where the odds are good. And I remember talking to Dave Andrechuk, who was a teammate, 600 goals in the NHL. I go, where do you shoot? He says, right at him. I go, what do you mean right at him? Well, I get it back again, so I get another shot. And so here's a guy at 600 goals, and he goes, no, because I keep the pucks in front of me. It's always around the net. And what I noticed today, because the goalies are so good now, the players miss the net more and more all the time because they're trying to be too perfect. And now it goes and they miss high and wide. Just the same premise, just get the puck on the net. And then it stays in around the net. But if you miss the net all the time, you're back checking, or you got to go get it again. And so the goal scorers, I remember Brett Hull would put the pucks on the ice and turn around and just turn and shoot. And anywhere on the ice, he could hit the middle of the net without looking. And that's how he practiced. Just make sure I hit the net. Mike Bossy ahead of me, they said, just hit the net.
That's interesting. How was your shot with this new technology? You probably just rip it harder than you did back in the day.
No, it's great. You have to tell yourself not to take the big wind up, because there's back pressure now. These guys back check. Is that allowed now in today's game, back checking? And so you're trying to teach the kids to shoot with the puck in front of you now because of back pressure. When I started, about your era, that's when back pressure came back. Used to be third man picked up the wide guy and the two defense played the guys. Now we got back pressure. So if you're not quick enough now, for a lot of kids, they slow the game down and they get checked from behind. I said, you got to keep that puck in front of you and shoot quick with your hands close in front of you.
Would you recommend that? Like, did you recommend that for your son? You said you were coaching him, like, as far as getting away from the big curves early to try and teach the fundamentals of the shot?
Yeah, I tried. He fought me, and he still fights me because they all like the Ovechkin type curve, but most of them aren't strong enough to shoot from the toe of their stick when you're younger. And it also, to put the puck on the toe of your stick, it takes longer to get it away. Where if you got the Crosby curve, if you watch Crosby shoot, it's from the heel, it's quick. He has a short stick, but he handles everything in his feet so well. Nobody's as good as that as he is with a puck in his feet. Right. But I would always teach kids to keep the puck, if they can, hands out in front because of back pressure. Right. You're not getting checked from behind. You can still get the shot away. Yeah. And if you're square to the goalie, if you do the quick snap, the goalie can't read where it's coming from. The slap shot, bringing the puck back. The goalie can dictate or predict where you're going to shoot it, where if you keep square with the puck ahead of you, he has a tougher time picking it up.
I agree. That's one thing I say to my kids now. I mean, anyone who ever asked me about goal scoring is like, of course you want to shoot the puck hard, like you said that, but I mean, hard usually equates to a longer release, right? Like you have to have the puck in the right spot and you need all these things to happen to shoot the puck really hard. But if you can shoot the puck quick and not allow that goalie to be set, not allow the goalie to be able to make his read, I think that is just as effective, if not more effective, than a hard shot. And that's one of the ways I scored the goals that I did, is just get it off your stick as quick as you can.
You're really just getting it there. You're right. Don't get them set. Because as the kids get older, as I told my kids and then my son all the way up, I said, you have to respect you learn as a forward, you learn to shoot until junior hockey. They used to just beat the guy and then have the goalie. Well, starting in junior, you have to respect that the defenseman's pretty good. And so you have to learn to shoot through the guy. So you have to learn to get it, use him as a screen, shoot through him, don't hit him, and get it away quick. Because you have to respect that the goalie's good and the defenseman's good. So if you think you're still going to beat him, you're just going to get checked every time.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to get the puck away quicker with, decoys, defense screening, goalie not being able to read something. I said, that's the new, and some players can adapt to that. They still want to beat that last guy.
Yeah, and then they're at the goal line. There's no place to shoot anyways.
There's no place to go. Like, what's the first thing you tell a fast, McDavid or whoever in today's game? You go, just back in. Maybe he won't shoot.
Right.
Like, just keep backing up because and that's what defense do, because they can skate well, even better today. Defensemen are great skaters. Or in our day, your bottom four defense were pretty tough, but maybe didn't skate as well.
Yeah. You mentioned Dave Anderchuk. I'm just going to say that for the listeners. Like that, to me, that was the most obscure trivia question of all time. Like, I mean, I knew Dave Anderchuk was a good player, but I didn't understand how great he was. And for him to have the NHL record for most power play goals in the history of the game, like, I don't know many people that would have had him on that top 10 list, right? You think of all the great players, right? Like whether it's Lemieux or Gretzky or Hall or all these great goal scorers. And Dave Anderchuk was number one until just a couple of weeks ago when Ovi ended up knocking him off. Like what a career he had.
Well, he was so good in around the crease, big 6'4" 5", long stick. And he in around the crease. I don't know anybody with better hands when I played with him in Toronto. And you think of why he got all these points, because of his skill, but he got to play with centermen. He played with the McGillneys, the LaFontaines, the Howard Chucks in Buffalo. Then you get to Gilmore in Toronto, and you put these smart centermen with this guy in front of the net, and just scoring. And so, like, he was a magician in front of the net because he could protect the puck and block out defensemen, and he had the best set of hands for a big man back in our day.
That's cool. 2 questions to wrap up. I don't want to take all your time, but I did want to talk to you about leadership. You were the captain of the Leafs there for 3 seasons. You had a letter on your chest in other places as well. What was your leadership style, and what do you feel that captain does at an NHL level, like as far as really creating that culture and what teams want to do?
Well, I think sometimes it's tough. I always say you're captain because a lot of it's done in the NHL level. Once marketing got good, you give the best player your captaincy. And it's not fair to these players to get it that young because they don't know the city, the town, the game. They're good, and they're going to be the team's best player, but they haven't learned the job part of it yet. So I always said your best, your captain is you can communicate with every player. You show up on time and you work your butt off. So if you can get along with everybody, you can. And so you have that respect, not as just being the best player. Where sometimes because of marketing of the game, we see 18, 19, not 18, but say 19, 20-year-olds getting it in the NHL, and they have to grow into that yet. Like there's a growing period because they're just trying to be good. So I feel bad for them when they get it too young because you're worrying about sometimes other people's games as well. When you're the leader on the team, you're not just worrying about yourself. Yeah. And the leadership is about just getting along with everybody, working hard. It's not about the old school when people read the books or the movies where, this leadership put the guy up against the wall and he demanded. I said, that doesn't happen because he just turned off that whole player forever. He'll never be a teammate of that guy again if he was to do that on a regular basis.
Right.
but you got to be, liked by all. And today's game, because they're coming from every, how many 6 to 9 different countries are playing in the NHL, you have to have that communication and respect. And a lot of times you get it by how you play.
Yeah. How'd you hold players accountable?
Stevie Yzerman probably, he went, and then they started winning everything. And when I played with him in Detroit, he was just the quietest guy in the dressing room, but he was the best player in practice. He was the best player in the game. He played in every situation. You just had to respect him by how he carried himself. And that's how he got to be basically Captain Canada, from playing on every cup team that wins it, Olympic gold medals, playing and building Olympic teams now and stuff. So, and it's done by how you work, not by talking. And then I wasn't a talker that way to lead by that way.
Gotcha. Last one, you played against Gretzky, you played against Lemieux. Those years were some amazing players. Who was the best? Who was the best in your mind from the seasons that you were around the game?
Best team player with skill guy. I want to say Gretzky as the best. The best individual talent I ever played against was Mario. What he could do with a 6'5" and reach, and I think the '87 Canada Cup that I got to go to as a 19-year-old, and Mario was a 20-year-old. I think he really learned from Wayne, because right after that Canada Cup, Pittsburgh started really, he learned how to be that team guy and bring players together. And Mario, he come back from, what did 1 year, he didn't come back from it. He came back from cancer and won MVP and Stanley Cup. Like the rest of us come back with a sore knee. He comes back from cancer and is the best player on the ice. And so those two guys there's, in my era, there's no real comparables.
Right. So you were on that 86 Canada Cup team?
No, I was 87 Canada Cup. I was last cut, and 91 Canada Cup. I was last cut. But just, every day at training camp, I remember 87 Canada Cup in Montreal. And one day Howard Chuck's your centerman, Hall of Famer. The next day Yzerman might be your centerman. The next day Gretzky's your centerman. And I think Wayne one day in training camp, he said, because he used it tight and I used it tight, and he said, "I'm going to use your stick." He went out in inter squad, got 3 goals, give it back to me. He says, "Yeah, no, it's not the stick." I just looked at my stick. I said, "Why would you do that to me?"
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was 87. 87 was the one where Mario went shelf in the last game with Murphy.
Yeah, because the funny story on that face-off, got to know Dale Howardchuk really well before he passed. And he started the Canada Cup as the 4th liner. Then he really played up the lineup, and all of a sudden they threw him out for the face-off. And he skated on the ice. He tells this story. He goes, "I was skating on the ice. I go up to Wayne. Okay, where do you want me? You're taking the draw." And Wayne goes, "I'm not taking the draw." And then he skates over to Mario. "So you're taking the draw?" And he says, No, I'm not taking the draw. So he got guilted into the draw, and then he wins the draw, and they go down and score the goal. But it's not like, he says, "I didn't think I was taking the draw. Those best 2 players in the game are on the ice." And so they said, no, you're better at this than we are. So so that's, how about have those 3 Hall of Famers on the ice.
Wow, what an environment that must have been. Did you feel, I don't know, worthy? Did you feel like you belonged there? Like,
yeah.
Well,
you really realized how good players are when I got to all of a sudden play with players that were in a training camp, because you're there for a month with 40 guys until they start cutting it down back when training camps, and just you're playing centerman and you're getting the puck as a winger. I said, "Well, how'd you even see me?" Mario can hit you, Wayne, because the other centerman I was playing with my own day, they weren't this good. And they were pretty good. They're guys that played 15 years, but you all of a sudden get to play with the likes of the best of the best. You realize why those wingers score a lot of goals, because these centermen are that good. And so it was just fun being at training camp with the skill level and just all the guys, and everybody's in a good mood, because the good guys know who's making it. It's really 5 guys we're trying out. So the 15 guys know they're on the team, and there's 5 of us. There's 5 spots for the other 25 guys, kind of thing. And so we had stress, but I was only 19 years old at the time, I pretty much knew I wasn't going to make it, but just the learning you did just playing with all these guys.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I remember I had Jerome Aginlaw on here, and he talked about when he got called in to try out for the World Cup team because of some kind of a last minute sort of replacement sort of scenario. And just like that, like the psychology of that, right? Like, 1, being invited, to being around the likes of, you know, Mario and these players at a young age, like, and then to realize I mean, I'm paraphrasing him, but like that he did fit in, that he could play there, you know, like was a real kind of eye opener for him and a massive confidence boost to let him know that, yeah, like I am not only am I an NHLer, but I am good enough to be around these types of players. And he said that was one of the big things that kind of allowed him to let his career take off, you know, and become the player that he did.
Yeah, and I think because you all look across, you look up, and you realize everybody's the same. You know, every time you get traded from different teams, you don't really know. When you get there, they're all just like us. Like it's not that complicated, even though when you're looking from the outside in and you don't know, you really think somebody's way, and they're not. No, they're just normal, just like us. And that's all the guys. And the better the team guy is, or as a captain or a leader, the more normal they really are, because they're relating to everybody. And it's not just the players, it's the training staff, it's everybody throughout that dressing room.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's probably a good way to end. And I will end because, you know, you were born in 66, right?
66, yeah.
Yeah, so I was born in 76. So like 10 years now, like at our age isn't that big of a deal, but walking into the NHL at 20, you know, and I got traded to you guys and you're 30, like that's a whole generation essentially, right? Because I was 10 years old watching you in the NHL for 6, 7, 8 years, right? So you were definitely one of my guys that I was like, you know, I loved watching the Don Cherries rock 'em sock 'em, and you were scoring goals and running over people and getting in these fights. So for me to walk in that locker room, like you were one of the aha kind of guys, you know, it's like, holy shit. You know, I mean, I'm playing with Wendel Clark, like that's insane, you know? And yeah, but like you said though, but you're just a regular guy, you know, like you're a regular guy who was Wendel Clark, who was an idol, you know, of mine growing up, but you're just a good dude. That was my teammate. And I think that was sort of getting through the psychology of that for me, right? Was like allowing that to happen. Like, yeah, I am supposed to be in the same locker room with this guy. That was something that I had to adapt to, you know, and maybe never really did adapt to it, but like the belonging feeling.
It's true. Everybody's kind of the same. And I know tell my son that trying out, he's, you know, you're playing in the minors. I said, you have to have the confidence. Everybody's the same, whether you're playing Hershey Bears or Washington Capitol. I said, technically you're all the same. You have to get that confidence. Confidence is so big. Because that, if you don't have it, it really changes how you play.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much for your time. Awesome to catch up. I really appreciate your insights. The last one though, how long was your stick? Where did you have it cut to on skates? That's on skates. It was there
on skates. It was probably here. I changed with my length. I'd always try to go longer in training camp because you got to use a long stick. And by the time training camp ended, I was right back because I handled the puck a lot in close to the feet. I felt more comfortable. And with one hand, I felt better, stronger with a shorter stick. And I could get it away quicker. When I used a longer stick, as I tell parents a lot of times, I said, it really matters on the stature, how you skate it. You know, if you're skate straight up and down, you can handle a longer stick. If you bend over in a crouch, you know, Wayne bent right over and then used a 4.5, just to do what he had because of his stature. The length of the stick isn't written in. And kids today, I think, use longer sticks than we did in our era.
Yeah, they totally do. And that's one of the things I've been kind of having the discussion about is, you know, especially, I mean, you talked about learning how to shoot a puck, like the straighter the stick, probably better for them. I think learning how to handle a puck, the shorter the stick, the better for them too, right? To understand.
It's sometimes, especially when I was coaching and parents, they'd send their kids to a defenseman camp and they go, you got to have your stick. It's this long. I said, teach your son how to handle the stick when he's a youngster. Get the right length, you know, because shorter is better to handle a puck. Then as he becomes older, he can play with getting his stick longer. I said, but if you never learn to handle a puck at all, you're going nowhere anyway, especially in today's game. So you don't all of a sudden at age 10 turn yourself into the 7th defenseman on the NHL roster, poke check, and that's it.
Right. Well, that's a great way to play to end. Thanks. You've been a great ambassador to the game. I know that you've been a long beloved Maple Leaf for good reason. And like I said, one of my idols growing up. So thanks for sharing your experiences with us today, and appreciate you being on.
All the best. Thank you. Best of luck, Jason.
Well. Wasn't that amazing? Mr. Toronto Maple Leaf himself has to be one of the most recognizable names in Maple Leaf history, and definitely one of the most endeared players to ever wear the Maple Leaf. So funny and ironic that, you know,
he was 17 when I was there. I was 17 coming from Florida, and they ended up giving me 7. He says, you should have asked me for it. Probably wouldn't have given it to you. But anyways, that's true, Clarky. It was an honor to play with him on his line for those couple games that I was able to. Boy, I wish we would have had a little bit more success, or maybe me personally, and would have been able to play with him and Mats a little bit longer. But so it goes. Such is life. And now here we are having a conversation. So Wendel, if you have listened or are listening, thank you very, very much for spending your time with me and with my audience. So many good things to learn from you and from your experience and from everything you've done within the game. And for all you players out there, if Wendel Clark can shift from defense to forward after seeing his name on a board in the dressing room and going on to have the career he did, I'm sure that you can benefit from being moved around, or you can have the mental agility to be able to handle a position change from your coach and do the best you can with that position change, because you never know where that position change will take you. You just got to keep an open mind and learn from one of the best like Wendel. He was obviously able to keep an open mind, and it seemed to work out pretty good for him. Although I would love to know what his career would have looked like as a D-man, because I'm sure that would have been pretty fantastic too. Maybe a little Scott Stevens-esque. But anyways, that's for another conversation. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And till next time, play hard and keep your head up.